Unicorn Wars is probably one of the most strange movies I've seen in quite a while. It's the concept of Care Bears having a war with unicorns, and in of itself, that is a wild concept. Not only that, but the fact that this movie has some of the most gory moments in any animation I've seen in quite a long time. Some of these scenes, honestly, I had to look away at, not even joking. Now, that could just be the cognitive dissonance you get when you see something so innocent and cute do awful, terrible acts and also get mutilated. Not only that, but they have active sex drives, they cuss a lot, they manipulate people. They're basically humans. You guys ever wonder what Care Bear's organs look like? You guys ever wonder what Care Bear's brains look like? You ever wonder what a Care Bear ding dong look like? Well, this movie's got it for you. Yes, I'm serious. They actually show a detailed Care Bear penis. This movie was made by a Spanish animator, Alberto Vasquez, and it was distributed by GKIDS, which GKIDS is New York-based distributing focused on sophisticated indie animation. And I'm planning on reviewing a lot of GKIDS catalog because they're actually responsible for a lot of Studio Ghibli movies and even The Secret of Kells, which is something we just reviewed. And it has many more beautifully animated movies that I'm planning on talking about. And since we're talking about animation, let's talk about that. The animation of this movie, really freaking good. Didn't expect it to be that good. The environments are beautiful and the gore is detailed and grotesque, you know, perfect balance. But yeah, I just wasn't expecting this level of color that went into the animation and just the detail and the fluidity of the teddy bears' bodies and how they move and stuff. And those people who haven't seen this movie, I'm sure you're thinking, oh, this is just one of those run-of-the-mill Happy Tree Friends animations where it's like, oh, cute cuddly animals, a gore, scary, grotesque shock factor. Whereas, yes, this is a lot of shock factor, there's actually good reason for it. The director mentioned there was 3 sources of inspiration specifically for this movie, and after watching the movie and hearing the inspirations, makes a lot of sense, but it's also kind of funny. Apocalypse Now, the Bible, and of course, Bambi. There's actually a side story in this that is very similar to Bambi's story. I mean, this movie's pretty much Bambi on acid. Seriously, I mean, there's a moment in the movie where they're tripping balls. Let's talk about the choice of characters. Why unicorns? Why teddy bears? And the reason for this actually makes me love this movie a lot more. The writer chose this for the sole reason that they're the embodiment of innocence and they are culturally accepted by everyone. And there is no group or race of people that will be pointed out in reference to a unicorn or a teddy bear. Because war movies obviously have specific wars that really happen, and we show demonization of certain people, of certain cultures and situations like that. However, the writer wanted to pick something that everyone knows and isn't related to a specific culture, just because he wanted to show the true horror of war without trying to vilify any specific culture or call out any specific culture. Because at the end of the day, war doesn't really know race, it doesn't really know religion. There's no heroes or villains in war. Everyone loses, no one wins, and that rings true at the end of this. Now, another way to look at it would be every single soldier was a child at once, was an innocent child who used to play with toys, used to play with Care Bears. So showing that innocence in an outward appearance while showing that attitude and mannerisms that a normal human or soldier would have, it really gives you a new perspective on things. So let's talk about the religion portion a little bit. It is a very big part of this movie as the pastor is a large role. The teddy bears all hate these unicorns because of the words of the book that this religion is based off. It holds this prophecy that whoever drinks the blood of the last unicorn will become the most beautiful teddy bear with everlasting youth. So literally the only reason they're demonizing these unicorns is all for a selfish goal of immortality and religion, which we start to realize is why everyone is so jealous of each other and fighting over their youth and looks constantly throughout the movie. And obviously another reason religion is here is because religion and war, you know, they go hand in hand. Now, whereas a lot of wars aren't solely fought on the idea of religion, there is a small section of wars that are only fought on religion. But the whole point is religion always plays some sort of role when it comes to war. And it's also the driving force behind our main character, Bluey, and his descent into madness in order to finish this prophecy that the book holds. So let's talk about the 2 main characters, Bluey and Tubby. And I just want to mention, I love how they actually have Care Bear names. But Tubby's the overweight soldier who kind of is always behind everyone else, while Bluey is one of the top rookies and is looking to climb through the ranks to be the best. And they just so happen to be brothers. And we see it throughout the beginning of the movie that Bluey constantly manipulates Tubby with his kindness only to embarrass him. He's pretty much out to get Tubby constantly throughout the movie. But at the same time, Tubby never really retaliates. He just kind of deals with it. I mean, we've seen this classic relationship trope before. The one brother takes out his past trauma and frustrations on the other brother because he's jealous of the other brother. And boy, do they have some past trauma. It all started the moment they were born. Tubby was born a few minutes before him, and ever since that day, Bluey has had a slight jealousy toward Tubby. Which I just want to mention, honestly, I don't really like this portion of the backstory or using this as a motivation to not like Tubby. I feel like that whole being born a few minutes before the other sibling, it feels like a silly reason to despise your brother so much. But I don't know, maybe that is like a legit reason to be jealous of a brother or sister, who knows? As time goes on, it makes a little bit more sense why he starts despising him even more, because Tubby is that kind, gentle, it always seems like his mom prefers Tubby over Bluey because of that reason. But interestingly enough, the real reason is because Bluey doesn't really reach out to his mother because he believes that she likes Tubby more. So he always has this cold wall that he puts up in between him and his mother. So all of this anger and hatred is truly just in his head, and it's something that he could fix pretty easily. And it makes the situation that much worse whenever she divorces his father, as Bluey sees his mother in the woods with another man, which leads him to hate his mom even more. And not only his mom, but Tubby as well, because, you know, Tubby's kind of the favorite of the mom. And Bluey's father ended up telling him that he must become better than him. He can't be mediocre. So their backstory, yeah, it's got a lot of layers to it, a lot of hidden neglect and abuse. I feel like this is one of those situations that seem normal on the surface, but there's a lot of underlying abuse that people don't realize. For example, the fact that Bluey's mom never broke that wall in between them and kind of left it up to Bluey to be the one to reach out to mom, which shouldn't have been the case. If a mom sees that one child feels neglected or cold to them, you would think that that mom would try to reach out to that child even more, but in this situation, it seems the complete opposite. The mom is concerned for Bluey, but never really reaches out a hand to help him. And also, Bluey's father telling him that he needs to be the best. He can't be mediocre, out of like a desperation. Putting that on your child truly weighs on them, and we can see that when it comes to Bluey throughout the movie, as his frustration of not being the best constantly eats at him. And once he reads that prophecy in the book that talks about drinking the last unicorn's blood and becoming like a perfect being, that's his version of becoming the best, to follow his father's words and be the best. But all of this neglect and abuse leads Bluey to do some awful things. Like, I'm talking really awful things. So at the beginning of the movie, we see a young unicorn that is searching for her mother, and she hears the sound of her mother's voice only to be greeted by some sort of glob creature. And this monster is kind of reminiscent of No Face from Spirited Away, but the unicorn narrowly escapes death. A very interesting start to this movie indeed. But we see a group of bear soldiers training, and we see them acting like, you know, soldiers. We see a few ding-dongs, we see them overly worried about their appearance, and also fighting over who is the cutest and who is the ugliest. I don't know if this has any deeper meaning at all, or if this is just playing on the idea of the fact that they're Care Bears and that's like their thing. But it's a ruthless environment to say the least, especially for Tubby, who's picked on the most since he's, you know, Tubby. But their platoon is sent on a suicide mission to the forest to find a squad that went missing. And we can see how the captains see this as collateral damage. And I really like how they showed their captains as people who look at their soldiers as pawns, not as people, because, I mean, let's be real, that is kind of how it is when it comes to war. Soldiers are kind of just pawns. And the forest is beautiful and also mysterious, and above all, dangerous. With poisonous animals and insects, honestly, this entire portion gave me anxiety by how pretty the forest is, but they all looked terrified at the same time. Because sure, the forest looks beautiful, but there are so many different creatures that you don't know what they do. Like, are they poisonous? Are they not poisonous? Are they gonna attack? Are they not gonna attack? But things started out not so great whenever one of the soldiers were bit by a poisonous lizard, because he was too busy asking Tubby if he wanted to see his penis. Yeah, and then things just kept getting worse and worse, especially when they find these rainbow caterpillars. So the pastor started preaching to them that the good book states that one must not eat strange colored meats. And this led to the lieutenant getting angry because the lieutenant doesn't believe in this religious mumbo jumbo, so he starts yelling at the pastor to tell him to shove it. I'm gonna eat this rainbow caterpillar and Screw you. And boy, that was a mistake. So every single one of them started to eat these rainbow caterpillars, which leads to them tripping balls. And honestly, the animation on this part is good. I like it. It's equal parts pretty and terrifying. But unfortunately for them, tripping leads to the twins to head out into the forest alone, and one of them mistook his brother for a giant mother caterpillar and accidentally stabs him to death. You know, it's a little accident. And the brother, realizing that he killed his brother, yeah, he hung himself. This show does not pull any punches, ladies and gentlemen. It's pretty hard. But this leads to the lieutenant to fall to his knees and beg for forgiveness from the pastor for not listening, as the pastor tells him that it's all his fault. And it's interesting because this kind of shows how people use that fear-mongering as a means to get people to listen and obey, especially when it comes to religion. Whereas in the lieutenant's eyes, he believes it's because he went against the word of God. However, this is just a simple case of, you know, maybe don't eat the rainbow-colored caterpillar that you don't know what it is or does. Is it common sense or is it God? You know what I mean? But as they continue on, they find the location of the previous group that was sent out here, and boy, all of them have been brutally killed with their organs just sprawled about the area. And this makes all of them start to give up hope a little. Now for the unicorn story, we follow just one unicorn, who is that young unicorn we saw in the beginning. Her name is Maria, and she's constantly looking for her mother. And we really see how the unicorns are completely innocent beings, and the only reason they are at war is some falsehoods behind the prophecy. But Maria was eventually contacted by her mother through unicorn telepathy, or I don't know. I don't really know what else to call that. She tells her how Mother Nature is the true mother, and Mother Nature will end up taking care of her while she's gone. The unicorns are obviously representing that nature and peace and self-protection, because they aren't at war by choice. They're at war just to protect their forest. They're at a self-defense war, because unicorns actually have power to give the forest life, and without unicorns, the forest will end up dying. But these are things the bears don't think about, because they're shoot first, ask question later type people. But after they end their conversation in this limbo-like world, her mother travels to this dead area of the forest and starts giving it life. And as this is happening, the teddy bear group is planning a surprise attack that ends up killing the mother. But the death of the mother led to a signal being sent to other unicorns, and what happens next is just a bloodbath. Bears getting driven through with a unicorn horn, getting their faces stomped in. But in the end, the pastor actually sacrifices himself in order to kill the 3 unicorns. And all that was left out of this group is 3 survivors: Bluey, Tubby, and the top rookie of the group. Now this guy at the beginning of the movie, Bluey had a little bit of an issue with, because he's a lot better than Bluey. And the lieutenant even told this guy that he's next in line to become the lieutenant. So Bluey has this burning jealousy for him, and he happens to be severely injured. So Bluey seizes his opportunity and finishes off the competition. And you would think that it just ends at that. You know, he kills him. He's like, haha, yeah, now I'm number 1. No, he had to go the extra mile. He had to eat him. Yeah, this movie's metal as fuck. But while he's cannibalizing him, Tubby's just watching in horror, so Tubby decides to leave Bluey behind, fearing what he has become. And we start to notice that Tubby doesn't have a tough time traversing this forest, because he kind of respects the forest for what it is. He ends up feeding off the land, you know, eating berries, mushrooms, frogs, and other things of that sort. All of these things were kind of taught to him by his mother, because his mother was a gentle spirit who cared for gardening and the forest and stuff like that. But Bluey finally catches up to Tubby, and his mental state has completely gone out the window. Still, even after all of this, he's just making rude, awful comments to Tubby, which leads them into getting into a fight, and Tubby actually wins, which I'm sure eats at Bluey even more. We then get a flashback of how the mother of Tubby and Bluey died. We discover it was actually Bluey who poisoned his mother to kill her. He was so jealous of Tubby and angry at his mother for divorcing his father that he ended up killing his own mom. However, you can tell he immediately regretted his decision once he watched his mom actually drink the poison. But this was the catalyst that made Bluey do all these terrible things in the future, and his mental state just completely collapse. Because no one ever finds out what he did. It is just that guilty conscience that is just eating at him every single day. And seeing Tubby, who looks similar to his mother, must be another reason he hates him so much, because it reminds him of the terrible thing that he did. So Tubby finds a stream of water and loads of blueberries, which means they finally have a way of escaping this forest by following the stream. However, this great moment was put to a halt because Bluey sees two unicorns, and those two unicorns happen to be Maria and a younger friend. Bluey, in a feral rage, starts charging at the horse and injuring one, but he was sent over the cliff. And while he was falling down this cliff, he lands on his head multiple times and falls into the stream. And Tubby actually witnesses Bluey fall to his death, or so we think. A few soldiers on the outskirts of the forest actually find Bluey's body with his face completely mangled. They bring him to the commanders, who reward him with a promotion to lieutenant. And Bluey's father is obviously starting to realize how much he put on his son. His son finally has become the best, like his father wanted him to, but at the cost of losing half of his face, his arm, and having to wear a mask the rest of his life. The commanders start using him as sort of a hero symbol to all the new recruits to give them hope that one day they can be just like him. You really start to notice how the commanders are really manipulating all these soldiers into just throwing him into a suicide mission. But once these recruits really start idolizing Bluey, Bluey ends up staging a coup to kill all of the commanders in order to seize control of the whole army and just try to wipe out the rest of the unicorns. And as for Tubby, he's actually living happily out in the forest in peace with Maria, who he actually helped treat her wounds. And we just get beautiful shots of the forest and animals living happily and peacefully. Everything's nice, colorful, pretty, and I'm sure you can assume that don't last long. Bluey sends the entire teddy bear army to burn the forest and smoke out the unicorns. And what proceeds is just war. Brutal, gory, hellfire of war. Death everywhere you look. And in the end, everyone dies. Unicorns and teddy bears. Except Tubby, Bluey, and the last unicorn, who happens to be Maria. At first, once Tubby realizes that it was Bluey who did all this, that was behind the mask, he goes to calm down Bluey and hug him, all until Tubby ran over to help Maria as he notices that Maria is dying. And with that, Bluey instantly felt betrayed, goes into that feral state again, and then uses a giant rock to cave Tubby's head in and kill him. Thus leaves him and the last unicorn, the prophecy. And he does fulfill that prophecy, but it wasn't what he expected. As the giant glob monster we saw from the beginning of the movie appears, he devours Bluey, Tubby, and Maria to become this god, which just so happens to be a human form. And the movie ends with all of the simians following his lead into the future. Now, I will admit the ending is a little bit confusing, but let me just give my theory on this, and then you guys can leave in the comments below what you think the theory would be or the answer would be. Now, this could simply just be a symbol to show that all of this blood and war really just goes onto one being, which is human. Humans are the ones who will kill themselves over and over again based on ideologies that are most of the time based in misunderstanding, lies, and fear-mongering. I mean, what is a war without ideology? Something for the soldiers to believe in, even if that thing happens to not be true. I mean, we see this all the time. Back then, we even had cartoons that demonized different races of people that we were at war with, just so everyone can feel validated about the war that is existing and not realize that it's actually kind of stupid. Because all of this war, blood, and viscera collectively combines themselves into humanity. This movie was honestly an emotional ride that had me looking away at a few moments, not gonna lie. The flaws and the hypocrisy of it all, using lies, miscommunication as a means just to go to war, because power mongers are the ones who benefit from war. Whoever controls the information, whoever controls the discourse, that's the one who's in control of everything. And this is a masterful way of showing that. I feel like this movie had some great moments. I mean, albeit hard to watch at some time, but it was a great movie. Honestly, for me, the messages is really what brought it home for me with this movie. Thank you everyone for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave down below your theories on this movie and the ending of it, because it's pretty interesting. And let me know in the comments below what you want me to do next. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.